Honestly, one big headline of the year for me is that the movies are back. We've had a couple of low-key years in theaters, but movies are a spectacle again, and I love that. Today on the podcast, as 2023 is coming to an end, we're going to spend some time reflecting on the year in film. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. I love the holidays. I do. I really do. But can I tell you a little secret? The reason I love the holidays, my favorite thing about the holidays, is that it's also the start of award season, which means that the movies that are out right now are incredible. I mean, this is the best of the bunch. Also, if you missed a bunch, you have a time to catch up on the big movies of the year. On today's podcast, we're going to do that. We're going to look back on the year in film. Yes, of course, the big movies that had everybody talking, but also the underrated movies that deserved a larger audience. And we might even get a little spicy, start talking about the movies that disappointed us, the annoying trends. People are already laughing in the studio. Simonpillai, Teri, Hart, what's going on, y'all? How's it going?
I just felt like you called my name when you said spicy.
Yeah.
I was like, the curry's in.
We're going to bring some spicy energy to the show. I'm excited to do this because what I love about the grouping of you two is that you guys rarely agree on a movie. And that means it's going to be the best time of my life. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with Rad. We're going to start with you and your favorite film from 2023.
Well, our war hero has arrived.
You made a good choice coming back here. Osage are the finest, wealthiest, and most beautiful people on God's earth. They outsmarted everybody.
They have the say who gets the oil.
Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon. Rad, that is your choice of movie of the year. Look, this is a movie that generated a lot of controversy, a lot of discussion over, who gets to tell the story of the Osage people in 1920s Oklahoma. What made it the movie of the year for you?
I mean, I'm almost afraid to speak because of the cut I am getting from Teri right now.
Sure, of course. Go ahead.
Listen, there's no other movie I have grappled with and thought about more this year. I mean, cumulatively, I must have written 10,000 words on this movie in itself. And it's like you said, this is a movie about America's original sin, right? This is a movie that, you take a crime story about these white settlers murdering indigenous people for their oil wealth, and it is the original sin. It's a perfect analogy to that. But then what's really fascinating about this movie, as you said, is perspectives, right? Who gets to tell this story? And the perspective aspect of this movie begins with the shift from a white savior narrative to telling the story from the perspective of the guy who's doing the killing or who's complicit in it. And it's positioning the audience within that complicity. But then what deepens the perspective argument is then when Martin Scorsese kind of acknowledges that there's no right way for him to tell this story and kind of, admits to his own culpability in a final stroke in the movie. And then what made it more fascinating is when you get away from the movie, listening to other people's perspectives, and especially, most importantly, indigenous perspectives who've brought in different angles. And that, to me, that didn't that pointed out some of the flaws of the movie, but also more of the strengths, and kind of engaged me deeper into the conversation, right? Because you had indigenous people who felt like that the violence was too much, who felt that the perspective was all wrong. It should have been from the Molly character. But then you also had indigenous critics like Adam Perron kind of pointing out how Martin Scorsese told it from the only perspective that he could have. Yeah. And he also grapples with the impossibility of telling the story the right way in that. And I just found that the flaws of the story, the messiness of it, so much more fascinating than a movie that's more perfect. And a movie I would contrast this with, this came up when, the Toronto Film Critics Association, we give movies awards, and this week we awarded Best Picture to The Zone of Interest, which is starting its rollout today. It's about the Nazi genocide. It's about the family overseeing
It's an unusual
Auschwitz.
Holocaust movie.
It's very unusual. It's beautiful, really powerful. Now, the thing about Zone of Interest is that's a perfectly made movie. It's airtight. It's the kind of movie that, it grapples with how we are complicit with genocide, which is very obviously relevant today. Yeah. And in a way, there's a lot of overlaps in terms of what it's about with Killers of the Flower Moon. But I prefer the messiness.
The
of Killers of
morality is
Flower-
clear in Zone of Interest.
Morality
It's a little bit
is what it's
messier.
doing,
Yeah.
but Killers of the Flower Moon is more rambling, more searching, and because of that, I keep returning to it. I'm more endeared to its flaws.
I just want to describe to the audience that as you're talking about Killers of the Flower Moon,
I'm like
Teri Hart is in the studio. Her hands are all over the place. She's like, let me in. Let me in to talk about this movie. You didn't like it very much. Tell me
I
what your
didn't.
deal is with it.
This was almost my most disappointing film of the year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Right now, there is currently an Uber driver in New York City who's still talking about the woman in the back seat who went off about Killers of the Flower Moon.
On me!
On him.
On me!
So that actually happened in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest problem is the perspective. My biggest problem is the messiness. My biggest problem is the fact that we do not spend any time in the joy of the Osage people. We do not spend any time feeling good and warm and understanding the incredible success of this community and how that was a revelation, so that when the monster comes into the story, because this is a monster movie, we have all of this feeling and all of this care. And yes, Scorsese is grappling with it. And yes, Scorsese comes in and says, I don't know how to make this movie. So just because you can, because you're Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro are going to be in your movie, doesn't mean you should. And I really lean into the panel that you had on this show with Indigenous film critics talking about it and how they felt and how they, and I mean, this is their story. Their perspective on how they feel matters most. But that's how I also felt watching
But
it.
one of the takeaways from that panel that we did, though, was that like Scorsese's probably not the director to tell the joy of the Osage people movie. Like someone else should do that.
So why
I'm
is he
not
the
sure
director to tell the misery? Why then is this the
Rad.
movie that we are left with about the Osage people, and we are again removed of the joy of this community? If he can tell the torture, if he can tell the systemic genocide towards this community, then why can't he tell the joy? Why can't we have a moment in that movie of why it is so important of what that and unique to who the Osage people were in 1920?
I think this is the interesting thing, because it's like Scorsese, like he said, is not the one to grapple with the joy. That's not his story to tell. I mean, I think we have a show like Reservation Dogs that does that beautifully, and I would love to have more movies just like that, but those movies shouldn't necessarily invalidate what Scorsese's doing, which is confronting us with our own complicity. And that's the story that Scorsese chose to tell, and that's a story that's so rarely told. Like when you have white settler filmmakers often taking on these stories, they often look for a way to pat themselves on the back. They often look for a way to make it a sympathetic story, and in fact, that
In fairness, Scorsese does not
rubs
do that.
our
Does not give
face
himself
in
that
our
kind
own
of,
muck.
That's it is, to me, it's a movie about white complicity. Whether that works for you or not, I guess depends on your perspective. I think that's totally fair. But also, there are, believe it or not, other movies that came out this year that we also got to talk about.
Yes.
Terry, we got to talk about your favorite movie of the year. What's your pick?
Past lives.
Ooh, Celine Song's Past Lives.
Yeah, it's.
Tell me more.
It's.
Rad is waving his arms wildly now. This is great.
I'm just gonna wave my
step back. It's the most human story. It is the most thoughtful story. It is the most emotionally resonant story. It really is about childhood sweethearts and Nora and Hang Si. I hope I'm saying it correctly. And Nora's family immigrates to Canada. She then ends up in New York. The two of them find each other 12 years later on social media. I think all the romance and the nostalgia of those Skype days is pretty wonderful in the movie. They stop that relationship and they find each other again 12 years later. And it really is about culture and what we keep and what we leave when families immigrate. It is about the choices we make. It is about destiny. It is about Enyun, which is a Korean belief in love and destiny. And I've watched it twice. I rewatched it again yesterday just to make sure, and I was right. It's the best movie of the year.
Hold on.
That I gotta say, that last scene of Past Lives is genuinely devastating. Also, just shout out Celine Song, we went to Queen's University together.
Oh,
we didn't know each other well or anything. I'm not sitting here like me and Celine Song. We go way back, but we went to Queen's University at the same time. She was a philosophy grad, then she moved to New York. She became a playwright. this is her first movie.
This feels
but also,
very, very
the
personal.
idea that this is her first movie is stunning to me because, I think she's kind of arrived fully baked as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Rad, do you have different thoughts about this?
I feel like it does feel at times like a student filmmaker's first attempt at narrative storytelling. But I mean, again, I liked it. I was really moved, like you said, with the final note of it. But I also think its greatest strength is its biggest flaw. The greatest strength being you're looking at relationship mess in the nicest, most tenderest terms possible, where everyone is being as productive and constructive as possible.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's wish fulfillment, and I didn't really buy it.
Also, Greta Lee having a moment between this and her performance in the morning show, and
Yes.
I am all for her and all for watching anything and everything she does. Past lives, go see it.
Greta's Oscar campaign begins right here, right now. Okay, we're also going to take a moment to talk about some of the great cinema being made right here in this country. Teri, your favorite Canadian film of the year was this one, a story told in English and Urdu.
तो कैसा चल रहा है तुम्हारा मिफ़ा?
It's an MFA, Mom. It's an acronym. Nobody says it like a word.
I'm not nobody. मैं तुम्हारी माँ हूँ.
Tell me about Queen of My Dreams.
Queen of My Dreams, directorial debut by Fazia Mirza. It stars, help me out here, Rod, because I know she's a friend of yours. Amrit Kaur. Amrit Kaur. In a spectacular performance. It takes place in 1999 Toronto and then 1969 Pakistan. She plays both versions of current day, or 1999 her and her younger mother. So Fazia has used a lot of Bollywood techniques to help tell this story, which is also ultimately a mother-daughter. There's dancing, there's singing, there's revelations, there's identity politics, but ultimately it is about lots of issues about immigration as well. It is this mother-daughter story and the daughter discovering how the mother became who she was, who she is. It also has Hamza Haq in it. And I don't, correct me, is there a more charming actor right now than Hamza Haq? I mean, he can do anything. He's so charming. He's so lovely.
I want him to transplant my kidney.
Yeah.
That escalated real quick. I love that.
Anyway, so I love Queen. And big shout out also to Blackberry. Blackberry is getting a lot of love, and it's a great, great movie. I just thought that, what Fozzie has done here is really exciting as a first-time filmmaker, and I can't wait to see what she does next. And that thrills me coming out of this country.
I just want to contextualize also what a lovely moment it is with Queen of My Dreams, because this is feels like there's like a Pakistani-Canadian new wave rising. So you look at Fazia as Queen of My Dreams. Also, Zarar Khan's In Flames, which is another lovely Canadian movie that was actually selected as Pakistan's submission to the Academy Awards. Amazing. And then, of course, Iman Vellani, who is Marvel. So there's this Pakistani-Canadian rising that I'm all here for.
Yeah.
Rad, what about you? What's your favorite Canadian film?
My favorite Canadian film, actually, Teri Hart was the first one to say, right, you got to see this movie, is Until Branches Bend by Sophie Jarvis. This is a movie that takes place in the Okanagan. It's a kind of a post-Me Too movie where it's about a woman who is impregnated by her employer, and she discovers a rotten peach, and all of a sudden her entire environment is kind of consumed by toxic energy. And first of all, Sophie Jarvis, just incredible first-time feature filmmaker, really makes this really atmospheric, thrilling movie that absolutely stood out for me. But it's also part of kind of a wave of movies this year. I think there was been a trend, not just post-Me Too movies in the sense where you had movies that were directly discussing sexual assault and justice and reconciliation, the way we had Promising Young Women or Women Talking, but movies about women just tackling toxic environments or navigating toxic environments, right? Where it feels like misogyny is just in the air. Zarar Khan's In Flames is one of those movies. The Royal Hotel, about two women working in a bar in Australia. Fair Play, about a woman in Wall Street. There was just a trend of movies where the women were just navigating these hostile, toxic spaces that seemed to be the dominant trend this year, and Until Branches Bend felt like the best of them.
So we are now going to move to a slightly different vibe in terms of this conversation. We're going to start talking about some of the movies that maybe let us down a little bit. And Rad, you picked a movie that 5 months after its release is still dominating the social media trends. A very special, brand new Christmas version of I'm Just Ken. Ryan Gosling, backed by Mark Ronson. The original, of course, appeared in Barbie. Barbie goes on to make $1.5 billion.
Yes, it does.
It's beloved by everybody except for the man sitting across from me. Rad, what's your deal, man? Why don't you like Barbie?
Ken.
Yeah. You can sing it, but also, what's your deal with Barbie?
I mean, look, like I just expected so much more. And by the way, Barbie is
so much more
because it's I had high expectations for Greta Gerwig. I think a lot of people went into this
delivered
movie.
on that. But anyway,
No.
Okay.
Well, I think like first of all, like a lot of people went into this movie probably expecting the worst because it's a Barbie movie, and I had high expectations because it's a Greta Gerwig movie, which is just a sign of how much faith I had in her. But I also think the movie struggled. Like, I think,
you struggled.
I do.
I think you
struggled.
I sat beside you watching this movie.
Yes.
We sat in the very front row, and afterwards, I was like levitating.
She really was.
I was so happy.
Let him finish
But I'm the
about
one
why
that
the movie
came in with
struggled.
a
We'll
pink
come back
shirt
to
just
this.
to show you how much I was really ready for the movie.
That's not a lot, man. I own a lot of pink shirts. You don't get a point for that. But what was your problem with the movie?
Well,
though?
but I just felt like the movie struggled with balancing the conversation it wanted to have about the self-image issues Barbie has created and kind of conquering that and trying to empower females. It felt like there was a burden on this movie's shoulders to get its message right. And also then have fun. I felt like it was always like it was either having fun or it was having that conversation in a way where it was telling you what to think or giving you like go speeches. Like that America Ferrera monologue everyone keeps celebrating where she tells you about all the problems that women deal with. Like that was a watered down version of the cool girl monologue from Gone Girl.
Dude.
Okay? Like the movie had
people
no
gave
teeth.
a standing ovation to America Ferrera's speech.
I mean, the people gave a standing ovation to Avengers Endgame. Is that any better? Like, you know what I'm saying? That's just like...
Wow.
But can I also say, though,
yes.
like, but Barbie, I'm happy for Barbie.
Yeah.
I'm happy, and
nice of you.
in the conversation of like
magnanimous.
in the conversation of movies this year about women now navigating toxic spaces, Barbie is absolutely the kind of queen of that moment.
Yeah.
Because it is once again about her entering our red-pilled Ken state.
Yeah.
But like it fell below my expectations. I needed more Legally Blonde energy, man.
Okay, I can't even. We literally don't have enough time to get into that because like that you just said a whole lot there. Teri, you got to talk about your biggest disappointment, which is a fun, pairing between Joaquin Phoenix, who never really fails to me.
Fun is the right word.
No, it's
Ridley
not.
Scott. This should be on paper a great time.
Yeah, it's not.
What made Napoleon so bad for you?
It's bad.
Okay.
I mean, it felt like Ridley Scott and Joaquin Phoenix were making different movies. I don't know where they were coming up the middle, but they didn't ever meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix is an actor, I think, that we all beloved because he's unpredictable, right? We're not never sure what you're going to walk in and sit down to when you walk into a Joaquin Phoenix movie.
Yeah.
What that means is he needs to be directed. He needs to be, and Ridley Scott did not direct Joaquin Phoenix. At one moment, he's like, almost a clown playing Napoleon. And in another moment, he's super serious and in a battle scene. And that just kind of permeates the entire movie of this, what am I watching? Also, I mean, the history is just wrong.
Yeah, Ridley does not care. He made it very clear
Yeah.
that he does not care even a little bit about the history being wrong.
And so, I don't think that's right to call it, maybe they should have called it Napoleon-ish.
If you saw Napoleon as a comedy, I think you would have had a great time. I genuinely think so.
Because the French Revolution is hilarious.
Yeah, no, but I agree with I think Terry's right about everything she said, and I still had a good time with it. You know what I mean? And then in terms of because this is a movie where kind of Napoleon's small dog syndrome is expressing itself in the bedroom, on the battlefield, in this
Except for
in
the
this
woman
wild
still gets left for nothing, and not to spoil anything here, Vanessa Kirby, I will say, is a bright light in it.
Yes.
She is a bright light in it. But they don't play up enough the small man syndrome that is pop culture reference to Napoleon. They
Sure.
don't wink to enough
called
of
the
those
Napoleon
things.
syndrome,
It
I
is
believe.
called
Yeah.
the Napoleon syndrome. So yeah, big fail. Ridley Scott. I mean, and he's made some great movies. I think it's the year of disappointing prestige filmmakers. Napoleon, bad.
Yeah.
Ferrari, Michael Mann, bad.
Wow.
Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese, bad.
I liked it.
So there you go. Three movies.
I like all three of those movies. Right?
If folks are just joining us, my name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion, and we're talking about the best and the worst of the year in film with Teri, Hart, and Simonpillai. Rad, obviously it's impossible to stay on top of everything that comes out in theaters or in streaming services, which means, honestly, like a lot of great stuff ends up being overlooked. What was the most underrated movie of the year for you?
I mean, for me, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. The adaptation of the Judy Blume novel. Like, I think people took for granted that this is just another, familiar property, and it's a coming of age story, and we've seen a ton of those things done before. But it does it so well, and they totally missed that. Also, like, we're in the middle of award season. Rachel McAdams gives a supporting performance there as the mother, and like dominant performance that should be nominated in every award show, and is being missed all around. And it's so wild to me because this is. Again, the movie makes it look easy. The movie's very sweet. It's very emotional. In a year where you're celebrating Barbie for, grappling with the self-image issues that it has, put upon young women, here's a movie about a girl grappling with those self-image issues, and you're totally ignoring it while you're propagating up Barbie. Like, come on, y'all. Like, get on it.
I also want to say,
go
again, weirdly, Rad and I watched Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret together as well, and we
spent a lot of time this year. But anyway, continue. Yes,
a lot of time.
Yeah.
But not only is it about a young girl grappling with all the things that Margaret is dealing with, it also deals with 3 generations of women. It deals with Kathy Bates as the grandmother, Rachel McAdams as Rad mentioned as the mom, and then Margaret herself. And all 3 of them are struggling with different aspects of being a woman at different times in their lives, and it all hits on every level. I cried in this movie in a way I didn't expect to. I totally agree with Rad that this is a movie that people, I think, thought was just fluff or just easy. And its superpower is the fact that it looks so easy because all the performances are excellent, and it is an airtight script. It is so good. Watch Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And please, 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 awards gods, give Rachel McAdams a nomination and have Rachel and Ryan be on the red carpet together.
A little Notebook reunion. Although, are you guys agreeing on an underrated? Are you guys agreeing?
Actually,
period.
Funny enough, we came out of the theater and we disagreed because I was like, I needed more movie.
Yes.
That was that disagreement. I was like, I want more.
You're totally right. Good memory. We came out and Rad was absolutely like, I was like, oh my God, I love that so much. I had running mascara. I was a mess. And Rad was like, I loved it so much. I wanted more. Like, maybe they should have made a series out of it. That was,
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, quick question for both of you.
Rad is a softie.
Oh, no, I know. It's just like not about the movies you expect someone to be a softie about. That's the frustrating part, is like he has a heart. He just shows it in the weirdest possible movies that one could show their heart in. This is not even for the podcast. It's just a curiosity that I have. Why is it that when we're working out issues in movies that have to do with womanhood, we get really thoughtful movies like Are You There, God? But when we have to like work out issues that have to do with masculinity, it's like the Iron Claw. Like, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, why are these the vehicles for exploring masculinity in film? Why is it always that and not something like Are You There, God? That's what I always want to know.
Because as a general rule, men are not good at emotions.
Well, I sure would like us to be. You know what?
I think that's what some of these movies are telling us, that the men aren't good at emotions.
Well, that's certainly what Ken is telling us in Barbie,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
The way the world works and the generosity of women is that even in a movie like Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, men can work out their masculinity. I think that's bottom line.
Preach.
Teri, Hart? What about you? You agreed with his underrated film.
I did.
What is your underrated film?
I didn't want to agree 100% with Rad.
Sure. Why would you want to do that? Never do that.
Off-brand.
Yeah.
So my underrated is A.V. Rockwell's 1001, which blew me away.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, God. Run. Tiana Taylor stars in it. It's about a woman who abducts, steals her son from the foster care system in New York City, and it covers a few 25 years of their life. Yeah. Shout out also to William Catlett, who plays Lucky, the love interest in the movie, who is just spectacular. You can't take your eyes off all of these people. They are, it is completely lived in. The movie also deals with the gentrification of New York City, the struggles of these people, and this big lie that they're living with. And you're kind of on tenterhooks the entire time, wondering how and when this lie is going to reveal itself and what the implications will be. But you are so on side with Inez, the mother, and Teri, her son, that you are, as an audience member, complicit in the lie. You want it to be okay for them. And that is a real trick that A.V. Rockwell pulls off in 1001. It's incredibly touching. I really like multi-generational stories that never make you question the age of the characters. It's just really lived in. And that's all happening in 1001.
And talk about another performance that is being totally snubbed in award season. Her
Tiana Taylor.
She's incredible.
I wasn't aware, but I guess she really made a big splash in a Kanye West video from years ago.
She did? Yeah.
And that's where, and to see her in this role, I am fully 2 feet into whatever she is doing in the future, and also A.V. Rockwell as well.
Real quick, we got to do a go around of like, okay, we get it. There are disappointing movies, there are annoying movies. But also got to talk about annoying movie trends that made you go, you know what, can this stop? So real quick, can you just tell me what's the most annoying thing you noticed on screen this year, Rad?
I mean, like, I just feel like I've seen a lot of people screaming into pillows. You know, like, it's just a thing. Like, I mean, and I feel like it's become this kind of shorthand for screenwriters. Like, oh, they're upset. Let's just write them screaming into pillows.
You don't do that?
I don't. That's the thing. Do people do this?
Regularly.
Really?
Every day of my
life. I saw
life.
Lilo and Stitch do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like
They're
ever
not
since,
real.
after Lilo and Stitch, all of a sudden everyone's just like, this is a way to show that someone's dealing with their emotions. Like,
not dealing with their
everything,
emotions,
like,
right.
even Maestro. Yeah, like, I don't know. It's too much.
Can I just recommend that you scream into a pillow? It's actually really therapeutic. Like, I'm a big fan of doing that. So I love that you're annoyed by that, but also you got to try it sometimes. See how it feels. Teri, what about you?
I wish I had come up with this term, but producer Stewart did.
Yeah.
Selfie cinema. Celebrities producing their own documentaries. These are not documentaries, people.
Yeah.
These are, prestige pieces about Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Pamela Anderson. And what that means is anything that might be a little bit of a sticky issue in their lives, like Pamela's relationship with Putin,
Sure.
Arnold's illegitimate children.
Never made it in there, did they?
Well, I mean, they just gloss over it.
Yeah.
And so I had a good time watching the Arnold doc and the Pam doc. I really did. Even the Beckham doc, I had a really good time watching.
Yeah.
But these are not documentaries. There is nothing in there that those celebrities don't want in
Right.
there. And so they're just promotional vehicles.
Right.
You
They're-
can enjoy them, but I'd really like to see a documentary about a celebrity from, back in my day that is a documentary.
So when Commotion launched, our very first episode was about this trend of celebrities kind of like hijacking the prestige that comes with the documentary format to be like, oh, this will give you an intimate look. Meanwhile, it is just simply PR, right? Like the idea is that like this becomes a PR vehicle and you feel like you've gotten a bit more access and intimacy into the stars' lives. You haven't. You've just been informed of the thing that they like you to sort of think about.
And this extends into the concert films. Taylor
Yes.
Swift, Beyonce.
Except for
Who
I do
who
like
invited
Taylor
you to talk about
Swift.
Taylor
Yeah,
Swift? I did not issue that invitation. But I was like,
It's in your eyes.
okay.
Listen, the Eras Tour, I feel like I saw it because I went and watched that documentary and I loved it.
That documentary, eh?
That documentary. That one's a documentary to me.
All right, so we got like a minute left here. As I mentioned off the top, it's the holiday break. It's the time for people to catch up on movies they might have missed. So both of you, I want you to recommend a movie that people should watch. Rad, you first.
I mean, look, I'm going to recommend everyone watch a hate watch, actually, because a movie I didn't actually like is Maestro, because it was more like, Maestrobation. It's
Oh,
Bradley.
my God.
This is Bradley Cooper trying to inhabit Leonard Bernstein to the point where he wants to suck up all the oxygen in the room like Leonard Bernstein did.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting movie where it's really fussed over. I think people should watch it because there's a lot of artistry in there, but to me, it felt like Bradley Cooper shining his own ego in being like, I can be as great an artist as Leonard
This
Bernstein.
follows
as
A
well.
Star is Born. This is the big deal.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, but Star is Born was trash too. So.
Yeah, I didn't like A Star is Born,
Okay,
but I did love
can't even-
Maestro.
Okay.
I did love Maestro, and
Yeah.
he is, being all those things because the character he's playing was Leonard Bernstein was that. So the criticism around Bradley saying, "Oh, he's showing off and he's doing everything that he can possibly do on screen," that's exactly what Leonard Bernstein would do, and it is a biopic about Leonard Bernstein.
This is what I love about this is that like any movie on earth to put the two of you into, you'll come up with different opinions and then this will happen. Teri, what should people watch?
Ben Affleck's Air.
Ooh,
It
say
is-
more about that. You know,
yeah.
I'm a Ben Affleck person. Go on.
You and I love the Ben Affleck.
Yes.
This is a movie that, I mean, once again, because Ben Affleck is so smart and he layers what he's doing with so many things, this could have just been the straight ahead story of Michael Jordan and the Jordans, Air Jordans at Nike. But it's not. It's layered with the politics of the time. It's layered with the fact of the beginning of the marketing of athletic people and the personal marketing, the personal branding of each of us that
And
we
it's
all
funny.
do. It's funny. It's got incredible performances. You loved
Chris Messina.
Chris Messina in
Incredible.
it. I love Jason Bateman. And a reminder that Matt Damon is one of the finest actors we have going out there. And you get Ben in a purple tracksuit.
And what more could you possibly ask for?
I mean, I would argue, but I don't have the time.
Rad Simonpillai, Teri Hart, this has been an hour of chaos. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, never not bringing the chaos. Incredible time. That was our look back at this year in film. Rad Simonpillai is a film critic with CBC and CTV. Teri Hart is an entertainment journalist in Toronto. And that is it for the podcast today. Hey, listen, before I go, I just want to tell you about the incredible folks that get the show on the air. Commotion is produced by Stuart Berman, Ty Callender, Jean Kim, Jane Vancouverden, and Jess Lowe, Nikki Manfredi, Gloria Omateo. Our digital producers are Amelia Ekbal and Shuli Grossman-Gray. Our director is Daniel Grogan. Our engineer is Sam Hashmi. The senior producer is John Perry, and Anne McKeegan is our executive producer. We're going to be off on Monday. That's Christmas Day. But you know what? We are back on Tuesday. On Boxing Day, we will see you then. On that day, we're going to take a look back at 20 years of the Broadway musical Wicked and how it changed musical theater. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. Have a good Christmas, and we'll see you back next week.